There we go. Welcome everybody. We are not there. We are here. Welcome to our lessons in Tanya class for where we gear it towards non-Jews. And we are in chapter 37 of the Tanya of the section called Likutei Amarim, the compilation of sayings or phrases. And it's the beginning section of the physical books. We're currently in the second physical book for printed copies. Well, the five book printed copies. So some people just have it all in one book. Um, so depending on your print, but we are in Likutei Amarim, which is the first section, and chapter 37 here. Even in the case, let's see here. Let's go back a little bit. Thereby it descends from the klipa to be absorbed into the holiness of the mitzvah, which is his will and is nullified within the blessed Ein Sof light. Let's back up again. Similarly, the power of the vitalizing nefesh behemoth, the animal soul, the vivifying animal soul, clothed in the bodily limbs of each of a person who performs a mitzvah, likewise clothes itself in the deed of the mitzvah. So when you're physically doing a mitzvah, that is you're clothing yourself in that light. Thereby it ascends from the klipa to be absorbed into the holiness of the mitzvah, which is his will, and is nullified within the blessed Ein Sof light. Again, bittul is the root word here. The Alter Rebbe now goes on to say that those mitzvot involving speech alone likewise affect this elevation of the animal soul, even though here the animal soul's power is not brought to bear in the performance of any mitzvah. So there's three major enclothings of the soul: the thought, speech, and action. The mitzvot involving speech alone aren't considered an action. But when you're doing a mitzvah, when you're doing any of the mitzvot that are involved in those three garments, that's what's going on here. You're literally you have an element of bittul if you're doing them lishma for the sake of heaven. It's a little different, I guess, for non-Jews. You gotta you know abstain from avodah zarah and know the unification of the name, what this means and the like. But the Alter Rebbe wrote this for Yisrael, and Yisrael is supposed to have this bittul when they're doing mitzvot, when they're doing the Torah and mitzvahs. And the Umot HaOlam do not have this bittul. We've learned that in a few places. However, a lot of people translate the Umot HaOlam as non-Jews or Gentiles, and that's not true. That's generally the Umot HaOlam are generally like, I hate to use the term bad, but they're non-Jews that are still enclosed. They're completely enclosed from their perspective from godliness. They're completely encapsulated from God. They're concealed from godliness. So, but then there's other types of non-Jews that are called Hasidei Umot HaOlam, the kind ones of the peoples of the world, and they do have an element of this bittul, and they receive a portion in the world to come. And what portion is that? It's whatever portion Hashem says. Like, we can't necessarily judge another person's entire soul, right? So, uh, and there's, these
Can I ask you
Hasidim.
a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so you just said there is non-Jews that are enclosed in. I guess they're not. have any place in the Olam Abba or the world to come.
Right.
So these people, what happens to their souls?
I don't think they go back into like a human type of form, so to speak. They're still like ultimately everything really is godliness. Everything really is God, like from Hashem's perspective. But from the human perspective, I would think that that soul ceases to exist as like a human soul, so to speak. It's it's completely
Mm.
concealed, and so because it does not go through the klipa, it's still in the completely impure husks of the klipa. They never achieve the that connection that's necessary to have their animal human soul revealed. So it's in that constant state of concealment. Now there are teachings that I have not read in depth, but and it was just mentioned in the last chapter, I believe, or was it earlier in the chapter? Did I just disconnect my mic? Okay. That they hide in the clefts of the rock and the rocks, and they are in fear and awe of Hashem. Do you remember that? No, but I'm pretty sure that's the Umot Alam. So in other words, the Umot Alam still might have another chance, just not necessarily in this world.
Mm.
So so from my perspective, answering that question, I can't fully answer the question, but I just know bits and pieces of the answers to your question, if that makes sense. So um I don't know if everything actually does get truly nullified in a negative way, so to speak. So, um, when it comes to this world, however, there are certain souls that emanate from this Klipat Noga. So even in the case of such mitzvot as Torah study, reciting the Shema prayer and the like, the animal soul's power is elevated to holiness, although they do not involve actual physical action, which is under the dominion of the Klipat Noga. So the Umot Alam are from the Gimel Klipot Tameot, the three completely impure Klipot, which are shells. They're shells that completely conceal godliness from our perspective. From Hashem's perspective, it's like the klipa doesn't even exist. But
Mm.
from our perspective, we see it like this, and we have to use the things that are from the klipa, the gimel klipot tameot a certain way, and the klipat noga a certain way. The things, the souls that derive from klipat noga are permissible. They are permissible to us to use them in certain ways, as the Torah describes. We have to have bittul, and then we can do the mitzvahs to those things. I say we, but I'm talking about people who kind of know this. They know what it is they're doing. Um, why do I say it? Because there are people who say, "Oh yeah, I don't bow down to idols," but they don't have the proper consciousness. They're still not unifying the name and thought, and so it's still not quite there. Um, in such a case, it would require studying the laws of Avodah Zarah. Particularly, another step would be studying Tanya, in my opinion, or some kind of work. If you're not into Chabad Hasidus, then another type of work that expounds upon the panini, the inner aspects of Avodah Zarah, so that you can unify the name, um, which is truly getting away from Avodah Zarah, getting away from strange worship, because you can have even like we talked about earlier, there's three garments of this. There's thought, speech, and action. Maybe actively I'm not worshiping an idol, heaven forbid, but maybe my speech in some way does, or maybe my thought, heaven forbid, does. Like for instance, I think, certain things about what would it be called? Sorry, it's been a long day. Shituf. Like if I have a mental block on what's called shituf, a partnership. If I think Hashem is, heaven forbid, multiplicities, and he shares powers with other entities such as like a sun, for instance, as an example, or three parts, things of this nature. Uh, that's called shituf, and that's forbidden. That's forbidden, even though it exists in the thought. So thought, speech, and action have to be clear of these things of avodah zarah, of avodah zarah, which is a big deal. Um, and we come across so many people, including myself. I still need to learn, but they don't know these basics. They don't know the concepts, the basic concepts of getting out of the thought so much of avodah zarah. They haven't been doing physical avodah zarah for a long time. But when it comes to thought and the like, they might not be studying these deeper aspects, um, which to me is essential. These are fundamental, even though these are deep, um, uh, seemingly esoteric things. These were written hundred. This was written hundreds, a few hundred years ago, and they said back then that this is the time. Now is the time, which was then. Then was the time to start revealing these teachings, and everybody needs to be learning this. Just as the waters cover the ocean,
Um,
so does this knowledge of Hashem will eventually cover all of humanity, all of creation. And this is very important for Jews and non-Jews to study. So yeah, so when it comes to the Umot Olam, they, it could come in a world that they are resurrected in the world, and maybe they get a second chance, or maybe they get to learn the Torah and have second chance that way. I really don't know. I have read a few things similar to that aspect, but I can't point you to an actual source, and I don't feel like I know it well enough to give it over. But I think that is kind of what is going on there. There's a side of Gavura that when all will be revealed, the sun will be removed from its sheath, so to speak, and the light will be super powerful. Some will find it to be a healing light, and others will uh, find it to be a light of just judgment and harshness, and people will hide from it, but it will still penetrate them. So I don't know the details, but that's an excellent question. It's an excellent question, Dixie. But I think so. I think people will somehow have some kind of either second chance or, and I've read in the Tanya and in Hasidus where if you don't study now, you will basically be made to study later. You will basically have to study. Um, so the souls, the animal souls that emanate from the Klipot Noga, however, do contain an element of goodness. They have a sense, a revealed sense of godliness, maybe not in a pure way because it's still from a Klipa, but nonetheless they can see a shimmering. That's why it's called Noga, the shimmering. So I don't know if Google will translate this here. Can I hover over it? Are you going to translate it for me? Luminosity. Oh, interesting. So this is actually funny. It uses Venus, which probably has some deeper esoteric and maybe even quasi esoteric things to Venus, as you know, throughout various cultures and the like. Venus is used as a rising, um, as something that is like the light. It is Venus usually is oh, what's the word I'm looking for? It's used to denote like not the actual light, but people might think it's the light. Um, so it's interesting that this is translated as Venus. I didn't know that. I just found out about that, so that's interesting. So Noga literally means like a brilliance or a luminescence. It is not the actual light, but it is if you see it, it's always the brightest star in the or the sphere in the sky right after the sun sets, right? So people might think like, oh my, it's the moon or it's the sun or it's this like no, it's very bright, but it is just the planet Venus. Same thing with Klepat Noga.
It's also when you're looking at a candle, the illumination
The
around the wick.
Oh, very
You
good.
look, you look at a candle, you can see three different layers. You see the wick and then another layer and then the
I
outside layer.
wonder if Venus, when you're looking at it, because it's at sunset or twilight or whatever, or sunset, whichever it was, it has a glow around it, and you're seeing the glow on it.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, it could be. And like Venus, like even from a scientific objective perspective, whatever you want to call it, like it's a gas planet and it's going to give off it's got its own noga. Like it's got its own and it's not even its own light. It's got its own klipa, I should say, right? It's got its own fog. Um So yeah, Venus is like kind of like the ultimate sphere in our solar system. That would represent the Noga, I think. So that's pretty cool. That's very, very, very interesting. And I know from like a astrological standpoints, the Venus is more of like an emotional trait. It's more your emotions, desires, and things like that. So you could really get wrapped up in this Noga, which is also I don't know if it's the seat. I don't want to get too technical because I can't get technical in my lack of knowledge here, but this is very similar to the golden calf. The worship of the golden calf is like the pinnacle of avodah zarah. It's like the I don't want to say I'm saying this halfway joking, but it's like the holiest unholy service to Hashem. It's like the pinnacle, you might say, right? It's people think it's so brilliant, it's so bright that they think that that is the pinnacle of the service of Hashem. Heaven forbid. But it is something that is like the light. It's a kind of metatronic to use that term maybe. It can create a sense of awe. And in one aspect, you can use that awe to think about Hashem and think about, wow, who created Venus. But at the same time, it can be used to people, heaven forbid, worship the spheres and the stars and constellations. Saying this is all a klipa noga. This is all aspects of that noga. It can either be used, it's permissible. It can either be used for um, holiness. You can give it up to holiness through the Torah and the mitzvot, or it can be used to give back evil forces to the Sitra Achra, the other side, which is where the klipa, these shells emanate from. Um, Yet it is an accepted principle that thought is not a substitute for speech, and one does not fulfill his duty of Torah, prayer, etc., unless he actually utters with his lips. So I want to say it was Teresa, but somebody mentioned how when you study Torah, you're actually supposed to be speaking Torah too. So it is also accepted that moving one's lips constitutes action. Bava Metzia, so that's from the Talmud. 90b. Um, and such action, as the Rebbe notes, likewise stems from the vitality of the Klipat Noga that is nourished by the animal soul, as does the actual bodily actions spoken of earlier. For the divine soul cannot express itself with the physical lips, mouth, tongue, or teeth, the instruments of speech, except by way of the vitalizing animal soul actually clothed in the organs of the body. So is the Alter Rebbe using this logic to say that it is involving the clothing of action, thought, speech, and deed, thought, speech, and action? Let's see here. The divine soul, the divine soul. So we were talking about the Nefesh Behemoth, the animal soul, okay? But now the commenter is talking about the divine soul, the nefesh elokis. The divine soul is entirely spiritual, the body physical. Therefore, as explained in chapter 35, the divine soul cannot activate the body to perform a mitzvah except through an intermediary. We got to be careful here because shituf is an intermediary as well. Okay, so we have to be very careful when you're using this English term intermediary. The divine soul cannot activate the body to perform a mitzvah except through an intermediary. So we're talking about the goof. We're not talking about the animal soul yet. Okay.
So is the intermediary the angels?
Well, I think he's going to talk about the nefesh behemoth, the animal soul here. The animal soul is derived from a certain level of the angels, a certain category of angels.
The reason I brought that up is because what we were reading today in Psalm 104 about the different angels. Yeah, so that's what made me bring that.
Yeah, the nefesh behemoth, the animal soul, is derived from the klipot, and the klipot are derived from the Ophanim and the angels, as from Ezekiel's vision. And there were the faces. Do you remember vaguely about the faces of the Ophanim? And there's the earth and air, water, and fire. These are different elements. Now, my scientific brain wants to say, well, that's silly because from a scientific perspective, things aren't made from those. But we're not talking about the physical world at that point. That is in the world of formation and above, in Yetzirah. So, I believe that's where it is. Try not to quote me too much. There's a work on Hasidus that um, um, I'd really like to read with you guys, but
James, that's really interesting that you brought up Ophanim because I was just reading about that the other day.
okay, to tell us. What'd you read?
So Ophanim isn't that the three or four wheels of
Yes.
Ezekiel?
Yes.
Hezkel, where it talks about part of his vision that he sees?
Yes.
And it's this movement of where Hashem is seated,
Right.
kind
His
of like a
throne.
chariot or
Yeah.
something.
So yes, there's correct. Exactly. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Okay. Oh, okay. So now we're talking about a whole different
World.
world
Yeah, not a
now.
physical. Yeah. Not this isn't the world of action. It's
Right,
above.
right,
It's the
right.
world of formation. It's how things are formed. And so when they're talking about air and those four elements, it's not
The
talking
element.
about physical things. And in my mind, like I said before, I'm more of a scientific type person. It's like that to me, that was the things that they tried to tell us what the Greeks thought about science, like everything were derived from the four elements. That's not actually what's the ancients really thought. They thought about it as if it was the world of formation. There were these higher worlds, and it's that the properties, their spiritual properties, things all derive from these four spiritual properties. For instance, when it comes to human souls, and you guys will probably be able to relate to this, some people are more airy, some people are more fiery, some people are
Right, right,
more
right.
earthy and the
Got
like.
it.
And they
Like
all,
in the zodiacs. Got it.
yeah, and that's actually where the zodiac stuff comes from. There's actually kosher ways to view astrology in the zodiacs.
Right, right, right.
But you have to know there's actually a good book called Kosher Astrology. I think it's called. Matter of fact, I just got it this year. It's really good.
Hmm.
It actually doesn't teach you so much astrology as it does a little bit, but it teaches you um, the sources for astrology, that there is a certain way of viewing astrology in a kosher way.
Right.
And it is very powerful, but when you understand those things, you understand the uh, your sun placements, moon placements, and the like, then you start to understand how the ancients viewed these four elements and how they viewed the planets and these things. And it's not so much about uh, it's more about time rather than
I want to
physical
say physics
placements.
as we
Yeah,
know
exactly.
it.
100%. 100%.
Right, because that makes more sense to me because if we look at those elements, they are more supernatural than we realize they are.
right. 100%. And that's why the Alter Rebbe he opens up right here. So this is chapter 1. This is the
Okay.
very beginning of Tanya. This is why he talks about from this nefesh, the nefesh behemoths, the nefesh behemot, okay? These characteristics, these midot, stem all the evil characteristics deriving from the four evil elements within it. And he calls
Oh,
them evil here, but the truth is, they're not really evil or good, so to speak, from Hashem's perspective. From our perspective, initially, they can be viewed as evil because they're emotional and they're wild and they're not under the dominion yet of the nefesh Elokis, the godly soul. That's literally our job. This is literally our job. Just like Adam was in charge of the garden and things of that nature. It's the same thing for us. We have to bring down this nefesh elokis, which sits on the seichel, and that's the face of man. That's the face of the man in Ezekiel's vision.
right, right.
Okay,
Which this tells me that
that's
Ezekiel was at that point of
100%.
of having dominion over these.
100%. He was seeing the Klipa Noga from the astrological perspective.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm understanding this better.
Yeah, and that's why it said that the prophets only got to that level. Moshe got to the level above it,
Wow.
which that involves the nefesh elokis, the godly soul. So Ezekiel, he was seeing all the things of the pinnacle of the nefesh behemoth, which is the klipat noga, which is the Venus, which is I mean, all the different metaphors of klipat noga and Metatron and all these things. And that's also where, again, I don't want to I come from a Catholic Christian background, so I'm trying not to, I don't take this as bashing, but that's where Christianity gets a lot of it things from because that's where the whole Jesus thing is the klipat noga aspect. They don't talk about that, but that's really what it is. When you read the texts, that's what they're trying to get at. Like the whole face of man, that's why they see Jesus in everything because it's that aspect of man. So they take it again. They take it into the klipat noga, the golden calf. They run with it and they take it into the golden calf scenario.
Or they see the Virgin Mary and a piece of cheese or a
Yeah,
loaf of bread or a piece of bread, slice of bread.
right. And it gets lower and lower and lower as the dot as the knowledge diminishes, and we read that in the Torah how that's how avodah zarah gets to be avodah zarah. The knowledge just keeps on going down and down. So you have these very high ancients,
Oh,
these ancient people that knew this stuff, but they did not apply the nefesh elokis. They didn't apply the godly soul to it, and therefore they kind of like I don't want to. It kind of it's like vomiting it out, so to speak, and people just ran to it thinking it was the greatest thing because it is very, very powerful. It is very powerful stuff, but it's not it. It's not the thing. The thing is actually above all this stuff because this is just all creative stuff. This is just all the spheres and the constellations and the powers that Hashem ultimately created. but because they're so powerful from the human perspective, people think that's it. You go into like an astrology group, and there's like it's like 99. I'm not trying to bash women here, but it's like 99% women, and they all just about believe that something happened to them because of their star. And like this happened. And don't get me wrong, there's people and they're saying, hey, you don't worship the stars and the constellations and stuff. But by and large, there's a lot of people that believe this stuff as if it is like the end game.
Wow.
So the Alter Rebbe here is talking. He's using, for instance, let's go in the example here, namely anger and pride. So he's talking about the evil traits right now, just the side of the bad traits. Those emanate from the element of fire, which rises upward. Now he's not telling you yet, but there's good sides. There's a good side to fire as well. But you have to use what's called this nefesh elokis, that godly soul, which
So in other words,
rests on this.
when we use the godly soul, we're tempering. We are learning to temper it in the way that Hashem has designed it to ultimately be.
100%. Yeah. One,
Okay.
one, he designed it to test us, which is what the trap that everybody can fall into. But the second deeper thing that everything is in on, even the elements are kind of in on this. Even the angels are in on this, which is that, yeah, they're supposed to be testing us, but ultimately we're supposed to have dominion over all these things. And we do that through the Torah and mitzvot. But the thing is,
Um,
most people get trapped up into it. And like when we're born, we are completely immersed in these klipot, in these klipotic forces. The air and water and fire and all these overcome our sensations daily. And even when I wake up, it's like, okay, did I say Modeh Ani yet? Did I? You can get so overwhelmed. Or like the other day, I was super hungry. I didn't eat all day. I was very hungry, and I was like, did I even pray or did I just scarf down my food? You know, and that's just one day of being hungry. So it's like I can easily be overcome by these forces, and um, so what it takes is to actively using our mind to bring down what's called this nefesh elokis, this godly soul. And for non-Jews, it might be a very simple thing as just studying avodah zarah, like studying, making sure we don't do strange worship. For the Israel, they are called to 613 mitzvot. They have a whole society based on inheriting the Torah so that when they are born, their parents are impressing on them the Torah and the mitzvahs so that they, as a child, inherit it. For the non-Jew, however, it's very it's based on merit. We actually have to. Not, I'm not saying that Israel doesn't have to work on it too, of course, and they have their own things that they're fighting, such as anti-Semitism, but. Uh, for non-Jews, it's almost solely based on merit. Um, so it's like because nobody's going to remind me to pray. Nobody's going to remind me. I don't live in a society that puts peer pressure on me to do Torah and mitzvahs. Um, you know, so it does. It takes actual merit for us to do these things. Um, but yeah, so this is like we're getting into what kind of like the ancients, how the ancients saw this stuff. And it's devolved, not it hasn't really devolved, but our knowledge of it has devolved in such a way that we've one lost sight of it, and two, when we do see sight of it, we think that it is unscientific or it's lowly in some way, but we have to actually put it in the proper perspective of what it is that they were seeing and what it is they knew. And not only that, but 90% of it was kind of Greco-Roman wisdom that isn't framed in the Torah aspects. So we have to be very, very careful in how we go about studying these things, which so it's studying these elementals and things like that in the Chabad Hasidus such a blessing to get a kosher aspect of the elements, and um, you could if you want to get into things like astrology or whatever, because it's for measuring the time. It's for times and seasons. But it's something that you got to be really, really careful with, because it could easily develop into literally akum, avoda kohathim umazalo, the servitude of the stars and constellations. But when you understand this stuff in the proper way, and then you read about Avodah Zarah, like Akum, Eved Kohavim Umazalot. You see why they call it Eved Kohavim Umazalot, the service of the stars and constellations, why it's bad, and where it plays out in the non-Jewish as well as the Jewish animal soul, because it's these elements when they combine through the angels and like that we receive our nefesh behemoths, so that some people might be more fiery, some people might be more watery, some people might be more airy, and some people might be more earthy and the like, or some kind of combination, and all those things. And that's what develops our nefesh behemoths. It doesn't envelop our entire being, but it develops our emotive attributes, our emotional attributes. And so we're combinations of these things. Um, and again, so back to the question, that's where the angels come into play, and the Ophanim and the like. That's why it's wheels. It's because these different combinations, they twist and they turn, and uh, you know, but that's not your 100% very being. It's literally just your animal soul. It's just your nefesh behemoth, and that's what enlivens your goof, your body. So, and that's what we're getting ready to talk about right here. So, what is this intermediary? The intermediary is the nefesh behemoth, the animal soul. So that enlivens the goof, your body. But what drives your animal soul? It's the nefesh elokis, the godly soul, the divine soul. And I didn't focus on that. Growing up, I was looking for this, but I didn't know if that's was a thing. It's an esoteric thing that um, as a non-Jew in the umot ha'olam, in the concealment, it's something that we can use our emotive traits from our nefesh behemoths to look up and be like, oh, what is our creator? How can I be close to our creator? How do I fear him, love him? Do I have fear and love for him? Maybe I am fearful and love him. I'm using my emotive traits to get me to that mental concept. So my emotions were causing me to ask questions in my mind, and that engages my garment of thought. And it's that garment of thought where you can ask the question of koach ma, or ma meaning what. And koach ma is how we develop the Hebrew word chokhmah, which is wisdom. So that's the beginning of wisdom. And any human being, particularly the Emoto Alam, can do that, because we started out just with our emotive traits, so to speak. You can still use your seichel, but a lot of people just use their seichel, their intellect, excuse me, to um, serve their emotional needs. I'm hungry. I want more wealth. I need more wealth and more power because I'm hungry. I don't want to be hungry. Um, but we can change that up to where we say, well, what else is there? What really is the meaning of all this? And that's where we're engaging our thought, and we're asking the question, ma, what? And that's where we start to gain wisdom, chokhmah. And so people like us, that's how we grew closer to Torah. And that's kind of like the basis of our souls. Um, So, and that's when we ask the question of Mav, what we're having bittul, we are opening up a space in our mind. Um, we're creating the vessel of our mind. We're cleaning it up, so to speak, so we can have a space for this divine soul. Um, where he's talking about this intermediary here. This intermediary is the nefesh behemoth, the animal soul, which on one hand is a soul, a spiritual life force, yet on the other hand is actually clothed in the blood and the bodily organs. So this nefesh behemoth is enclosed in our goof. It's not the goof, but is enclosed in it. That's very important to remember. This intermediary is necessary in mitzvot performed through speech, just as in the mitzvot performed through action. For articulating the words required for the mitzvah also constitute physical action, so that this too cannot be accomplished by the divine soul, except by way of the animal soul's power. And so this concept here, this intermediary concept, you can see we've laid the groundwork now where you can see how people can start to use intermediaries to do bad things. And that's why it's forbidden to serve intermediaries, because people could, just serve the animal soul rather than the animal soul being the servant.
Okay, I got a question here that's probably way off the wall, and you're going to think I'm nuts. But you just said that it's enclosed in our body. So the parts that are enclosed in our body, is that like our heart, our lungs, and everything of the sephirotic structure?
Those are
Is
those are
that,
representations, but that's still the goof. The
right?
the
But
nefesh.
would they be the intermediary?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. So those organs and those things are still part of the goof. The blood is still the goof, but enclosed in the blood, enclosed in their organs. And I'm not talking about on a physical level, but in a higher worldly level, is that nefesh behemoth, that animal soul. In other
Right.
words, like there's something that is causing our heart to do what a heart does. There is something, and it's beyond just DNA, because if you look at DNA, what's causing the DNA to do that? And what's causing the biochemicals of those reactions to do that? And what's causing those subatomic particles to do those things on such a level? So
Okay.
there's a form that things have a tendency to form into, and that's where we have the world of formation, because those things are those things are moving into a certain form, and there is a form called Adam, there's a form called man, and some people don't believe there's a form, uh, but there's people that do believe that there is a form, that we are supposed to be doing something. We have a certain purpose, a certain vision, just as a heart has a purpose to pump blood, and organs have their various purposes, and blood has a certain purpose and the like. There's that form of that thing, of that entity that is driving it. And that form from the world of formation, from the world of Yetzirah, is the Nefesh Behemoth that is enclosed in those particular things.
James, that Nefesh Behemoth, that is the animating force that operates. And so I think where Dixie's maybe trying to join the two at is that the animating force, the Nefesh Behemoth, is causes all of these. It controls the fluids, the
Oh,
the
100%.
and so it's causing all of the gastric fluids of the stomach, the adrenaline of the kidneys, and all of the different things that causes the body to animate and to
Right,
function, to operate.
right.
So it's off of that animating force, and that's a thing that's unique to the soul. It's not, and that's where when you get to the nefesh behemoth, it's really it's not physical and it's not spiritual. It's both. It's somehow it's this, or I think a better way to explain it is it's where the spirituality touches physicality
Oh, right, right, right.
and then makes it animate and makes it become alive and function and do within a physical aspect and not so much a spiritual. Even though the Yetzer Hara gets a hold of it and then turns it into something negative, or the Yetzer Tov can turn it into something positive.
Excellent.
Yes, Russell, that was what I was trying to get at. Thank you.
Oh, good. I'm sorry, Dixie. I must have misunderstood your question.
Oh,
I'm
don't
glad Russell picked it up my
not,
pieces.
don't be sorry. I'm not very clear with my question. So
Oh,
you were fine. It's not you. It's
yeah.
me and being able to ask it right.
Oh, I thought it was a good question. I guess I just didn't understand it, but I'm glad Russell was there.
No,
Me too.
I thought it was really good too because
Good.
it helped me to understand that we are not operating on our own accord. You know what I mean? Even our own bodies,
Yeah, we
when
can't
we look at
control
it from
anyone.
a higher spiritual aspect or plane, our own bodies are not operating on their own accord. And you're talking about being clothed. There's elements of energy that's doing all that, the work that our physical bodies are doing
Yeah,
beyond. I mean, we're clothed by something else.
yeah,
But
100%.
doesn't
That's
the but doesn't the breath of Hashem, when he gave it to Adam, doesn't that act in us also?
well, it
That's
sure
a
seems like it would.
Yes, that's the essence. Yeah, so that goes on. That is a good point, and but that's also going on that's going on a deeper level, which is the nefesh elokis, the godly soul, because it's how do I put it? Quickly. Um, so Ernestine brought up an excellent point. I just don't know if I can get through it quickly. So the Tanya and other places in Hasidus talk about that and what is it and why is it in the lungs and what is the lungs and what is to understand um, why it is breath and in the lungs and the really deep aspect is that the white parts, there are white parts of the body and there are red parts of the body. Um, the white parts generally stem from Hesed, and the red parts generally stem from Gevura. The white parts can stem from the brain, for instance. The brain, which encloses not just ours, but literally Hashem's, is his essence. And the way a man works, the way a human works, is that your essence stems from your brain down your spine and it goes all the way down to your tailbone and the like. Um, and in the male parts of the male, the white parts. So when it comes up though to the lungs, when it goes into the lungs, you can breathe out your essence. Okay. So you can, using your brain, you can articulate and express the contents of your brain through the lungs, controlling your breathing out past the tongue, past the roof of your mouth, over your teeth, over your teeth, and over your lips, and you can form letters and you can form sentences, words and sentences, and therefore you can actually express the hidden parts of yourself, which is in your brain, you can actually express them using speech. And so it's a what's the word I'm looking for? It's another way that Hashem can express how he expresses himself. It's a poetic way, it's a real way. It's actually through biology that's how Hashem can take something that is internal, the panimiut of himself, and express it to us externally. And that's what the Torah is. That's why it's spoken. And that's why when we study his word, we do everything kind of in reverse. So he spoke his word, he enclosed it. That's how he enclosed his wisdom. That's how he used his speech, that through the mechanics of speech that I just described about the air going over the tongue and the mouth, he enclosed his wisdom, which is called his Torah. When we hear it and we read it, we kind of do the reverse. We take the encoded wisdom that he had and we decode it. We decode it. This is what's called being oisek in the Torah, deeply involved in Torah study. This is called Torah study. This is called not lamed, which is another form of Torah study, but it's not deep. This is deep oisek Torah, where you really care about it. You're involving yourself. You literally want to know what the author is like. You want to know his wisdom. You want to know what he's saying. You want to unite with the author. Just like when you read any book, you could do this. But when it comes to the Torah, because the Torah is Hashem's wisdom, you are uniting with His wisdom. So your mind, when you're oisek and you decode His Torah, you are literally uniting your brain with His brain. And that's how you unify. That's how you can begin to unify the name of Hashem at the very tippy top, so to speak.
Well, and he spoke, speech is what brought everything into being, which is
Yeah.
wisdom, and which he gave the gift to man, not to the animals, to do that. So we bring into being with our speech for good or bad.
Oh, in a certain way, yes. In a way of yesh me yesh, something from something, or something, Hashem is more of yesh ma'ayin, something from nothing. And even on a deeper level, it's still nothing. It's only from our perspective that it seems like it's a thing. But that's how I even kind of forget the question. I'm sorry, guys, but like that's how speech in the lungs. The breath. The Ernestine was talking about the breath. That is what is meant, or one way of looking at it is meant by his breath. So yeah, that's we have to use our brains in order to decode that breath in order to do that. Not everybody does that. Not everybody wants to do that. Um, and that's how you become, that's literally called being a child of Hashem. Why a child? Because the brain is connected to the spine, which is connected down to the male parts, and it's all white. All those things are white. And so when a man creates life through seed that is also white, that's literally encapsulation of his essence. And it's all connected. And that's truly what is meant by being a child of Hashem. So it's not that we're all human beings and therefore we're children of Hashem. It's actually it's got to be a deeper level, and it's one of thought, speech, and action. And that's kind of what the Alter Rebbe is talking about here. It's uniting. Oh, this is what's called uniting the name, unifying the name of Hashem. And this is a huge, huge deal. So, like for instance, Ernestine talked about, breathing in him the breath of life. This is it. This is part of it. This is like that moment. So you have the goof, which is made of clay, so to speak, the Adam, and then it has to be breathed a life into it, which is Hashem's internal essence, his panimiut, his actual essence. And so when we learn this, we're beginning that completion. We're just entering. We're just beginning that completion,
And
and
it's beautiful.
it's beautiful. Very good. Yeah. So that's an excellent statement and question by Ernestine. And this is very important. It's so important for every human being to be focused on studying Torah for this reason. Um, um, so let's see here. For articulating the words required for the mitzvahs also constitutes the physical action, so that this too cannot be accomplished by the divine soul, except by way of the animal soul's power. So the divine soul I don't know if I should say it needs, but it kind of does need the nefesh behemoths to interact in the here in the world of Asiya. The nefesh elokis is already united fully with Hashem. It is that portion of His essence. It is truly a part of Hashem, chelek of Hashem, and we can receive that when we have that bittul to make room for it in our thought. And then from there, it can go into our speech and our action by way of the nefesh elokis, the godly soul, telling our nefesh behemot what to do, rather than the other way around. Actually, what happens is the nefesh behemoths can't really tell the nefesh elokis what to do. It tries to, and what happens is the divine soul goes into exile because it's I don't know the exact mechanics of the nefesh elokis, but it's a part of the Shekhinah. So when the nefesh behemot abuses the nefesh elokis, it goes into exile. It goes makif.
Hold on, James. You said the Nefesh Elokis goes into exile.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. It
Yeah.
separates itself. It says, I don't want nothing to do with that.
Correct.
Wow.
It can't be tainted by it can like try to be, it can be sent into exile. We can send it, heaven forbid, we can send it into the Sitra Achra, but it is never like fully controlled. It's just set into exile, and then the evil forces try to feed off of it. So
Oh,
whenever you hear about the woman being in exile and the like in the Tanakh, this is kind of what it's
alluding to or referring.
yeah. Yeah, and you have to
Wow.
it's our job to rescue her. It's our job to rescue her from that. Uh
Fascinating. Thank you.
it's very yes. You're welcome. Hence, the more forceful one speaks words of Torah or prayer, the more of the animal soul's energy he introduces and clothes in these words. Thereby, he converts more of the energy of the klipa to holiness. Wow. So convert is actually used correctly there. Yeah, that's actually what conversion is. It's anybody can do this. You don't have to be accepted by a beis din in order to do this. Uh, that's not what convert means. Oh, I want to convert so bad. No, you don't have to. Just do it now. It's just that nobody's telling you how to do it, unfortunately. I'm not talking about you guys. I'm just saying, like, people you run across, um, they want to convert to Judaism so bad, and they live out in Timbuktu or whatever. You don't have to run away to do goodness and kind deeds. You can start in your little village or wherever it is that you're so far flung from a Jewish community. You can start just by doing goodness and kind deeds. Tzedakah. If you can learn about the seven, learn about the seven. Particularly, Eino Avodah Zarah. Don't do Avodah Zarah. Don't do strange worship. Um, Doing simple acts of goodness and kindness.
In other words, you don't have to send your Elokis into the Gullus.
Yeah, right. 100. Yes, exactly. That's actually what happens. You're exactly right, Mercy. It's like people get this epiphanous moment where their emotive attributes go up to their seichel, their intellect, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, I need to figure out what I need to do in my life." And then what happens? They eventually come across the Torah, and they start to learn, and then what happens is they start to think like, well, I have to convert. I got to change. I got to do this. They don't realize that they actually had it there the whole time.
Right.
They just were ignorant of what needed to happen and when.
Mm.
And unfortunately, people a lot of times misguide them and say, well, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to break up with your spouse, and you need to move to a bigger city where you can go to a beis din and all this. Like, no, you don't necessarily have to do that. Like, maybe in some situations, but no, like 9 times out of 10, you have to understand what Hasidei Moto Olam are, what kind ones of the peoples with the concealment are. Like for me, I had to realize like, oh, I'm in concealment. I'm in concealment. Not only that, but that Hashem is everywhere. Well, guess what? If Hashem is everywhere and I'm in concealment, then that means I just need to reveal the things that are around me, including myself. I need to, what's going on in my life that I can just do right here, right now. And it's
Exactly. That's
oh,
good.
yeah, and it
That's
makes
good
people's
because if
lives a
he's
lot easier.
everywhere, if he's everywhere, he's in the concealment where you're at.
100%. You're 100% right, Mercy. And that's like a revelation. Like, well, I don't want to get too weird, but yeah, it's like, a realization that I had
Yeah.
to have like, oh,
That's
like,
so good. That's so
yeah,
good.
like for instance, like in I live small town Terre Haute. Well, it's not that small town, I guess, but I don't know what we got, maybe 40,000, 50, I don't know. But anyways, I was born and raised here. Everybody wanted to kind of like leave town, growing up here, elementary, middle school, high school. People wanted to go off to college and they wanted to they wanted to live somewhere else. Um, and this might not be for everybody, but what I realized, because I guess I did that. I lived in Chicago, and it was more for more practical reasons. I wanted to study Torah. Danielle knew, uh, there was a Jewish community there, and we got job opportunities, so we moved there. But you get this realization, like, oh, I can do anything really, just about in every single scenario in the world, relatively. And like I just have to make the best of wherever it is that I am. And so coming back here, moving back here, like we have just on a very superficial level, like on a biological level, like we have good soil here. We have well, except for maybe tornadoes, we have, very mild weather conditions. We can grow just about anything we want to grow here. It's relatively safe. All these, there's no need, in other words, to go somewhere else, like the grass is greener on the other side type thing. If Hashem truly is everywhere, then why can't I just make the most of where I am? So like I'll start to learn, okay, well, we can raise chickens here. Okay, well, let's raise chickens. I can grow things here. Let's start to grow things. I can have honeybees. Okay, well, let's have honeybees. Let's have this shefa, even though on a very basic low level, because it's just the world of Asiya. This is like the lowest form of Hashem's shefa, okay? But why can't we just make the most of what we have here? We don't have to travel. It's not always there or over there. Why don't we just reveal godliness that is here? And so all these things that emanate from the Klipat Noga, these things that are permissible, these souls and these things that emanate from the Noga, why don't we just make use of them here? And when it comes to Torah study, I can study Torah everywhere now. We can study together through Zoom, and I don't have to necessarily go anywhere. And
That's a good point.
yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
so
very
what
good.
can I do on a small level? Like I was raised Catholic, my parents are Catholic. What goodness do they have? What can I find like common ground on with them? Because I don't believe they're fully like, in a vodazar or whatever. People would disagree, but even the Talmud says people today, and that was back in the Talmudic time, are not full blown I idol worshippers. Even though they might bow down to them, they don't understand what it is they're doing. So it's like, okay, well, I need to understand what Hasidei Umot Olam are. And I've got a pretty good grasp on that now. It's like, oh, so chesed is everywhere, kindness is everywhere. I can grasp onto chesed, and it's the people that grasp onto chesed that are probably from these Hasidei Umot Olam, these kind ones of the peoples of the world. That means they have an element of bittul to them. Does that mean they're a Yisrael? That doesn't mean they're keeping all 613 mitzvot. No, but it means that they most likely have an element of bittul to them, and they receive a portion of the world to come, and they're kind, and I can be kind to them. Uh, and this is these revelations that you can have just in the world around you that reveal this godliness that right here. Thereby he converts more of the energy of the Kli. That's all it is. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's huge. Like it takes a lot of effort, but that's literally like we can do this anywhere. Just being kind, truly kind to others is huge. Let's get through this and then maybe we can wrap it up. But this is I didn't know this was here. This is also the meaning of the verse. All my bones shall declare God who is like you. Now, the bones are the white parts. Bones are generally white. Okay, we just got done talking about the white parts, which is the side of Hesed. Okay, which means that the words of Torah and prayer must be said with all of one's bones, so that as much as possible the body's energy be utilized in performing the mitzvot. Now, this is true, I believe, for non-Jews as well, and we'll see why in a minute. This is why our sages have said that if the Torah abides in all 248 limbs, it is preserved in your memory. Otherwise, it is not preserved. So, Dixie, maybe that kind of answers your question a little bit. So I am fully aware that I do not probably keep all these or whatever, and I don't honestly don't care too much. I just know that God willing, a portion of myself, of my soul, is going to be united with Hashem. And the portions that aren't doing Torah mitzvahs, guess what? I probably don't want to do anything with those portions of myself to begin with. It's better that they're not with me, right? So, why does this relate to non-Jews? Is because we're talking about the human body here. So, from a Kabbalistic, esoteric perspective, Adam has 613 parts. There's 248 positive and 365 negative, which are the red parts. So, the 248 limbs, the bones, are the white parts, which are from Chesed and associated with the side of it's the side of Chesed, which is where the positive mitzvot, the positive commandments are. So there's 248 positive commandments, and those things are permissible. The other side of the body, which is the side of Gevura, or the red parts, which are the 365 parts of the body, those are from the negative. That's where the negative commandments stem, and those are the don'ts. Don't do this, don't do that. Those are the things that are not permitted. Why does this matter? Why is this a big deal for our class, our non-Jewish class? Because every human being has these 613 parts. And as human beings, and we've read this in the Tanya, the sole purpose of Adam is to use these parts of our bodies that we have been given. How do we do that? We do it through the Torah and the mitzvot, because Torah and mitzvot, we are engaging what's called the nefesh elokis, a godly soul, and then we're fully engaging our bodies. No, I'm not saying I do. I'm not saying I am, but that's like the goal. And from my perspective, from my experience, there's definitely a progression. Again, what is that progression? The Sheva Mitzvot B'nai Noach, the 7 laws that were given to the children of Noah, the 7 commandments that were given to the children of Noah. The most important being Eino Avodah Zarah. Don't do Avodah Zarah. Don't do strange worship. And so this is huge. This is a very big deal for all of humanity. We all have 613 internal parts. Now, people don't, because it's internalized, you have to see through that skin in order to see the panemius, the inner aspects. But most people just want to see the skin. They just want to see the noga. Oh, how beautiful that person is. Oh, man, that basketball player, he can move so gracefully, and we'll rally around that grace and the beauty of the human body. But the truth is that the panemius, not the externalities, but the panemius, the internalities, and not just the physical internalities, but the real internalities of all the worlds, of everything. Uh, for forgetfulness in matters of Torah stems from the klipa of the body and the vitalizing animal soul, derived from the klipat noga, which is sometimes absorbed into holiness. When it is absorbed into holiness, there is no longer any cause for forgetfulness. This is accomplished when one weakens their power, the power of body and animal soul, applying all their strength to the holiness of Torah and prayer. This, then, is the meaning of the aforementioned quotation. When one involves the energy of all his 248 limbs in Torah study, it is preserved in his memory. for the klipa that causes one to forget has been weakened. So that's very interesting, very cool. There's things called epigenetics where you can actually change your genetics. You can actually change your DNA by what you do, how you feel, how your outlook is on life. But look up epigenetics. It's amazing. Particularly anxiety and epigenetics. Anxieties can be passed down from generation to generation, but I also believe that the reverse positive traits can be absorbed into epigenetics. So while anxiety might be considered a negative trait, there can be positive traits such as kindness, such as hesed, that I believe can be passed down through epigenetics and positive traits. And I think this ties in with that. And I just wanted to say that. And I think that kind of could be where Avraham and Yitzhak and Yaakov come into play, and the Jewish people and the Klipat Noga. But I don't want to digress too much. It's 10:21. I think we need to call it. Does anybody want to talk about anything or? Okay, I think we're just gonna call it a night here. We'll leave it here. Yeah, important thing though. Every human being has these 248 limbs. There's 248 positive mitzvot that stems from the side of chesed, the side of kindness, the permitted mitzvot. All human beings have this stuff. So it does appear to me that we should be engaging it in a sequential type order, particularly with the 7 commandments. So, alrighty, guys. Well, be well. I'll see you guys next week. And we went over, but appreciate it. And
Thank you, James.
oh yeah, thank
Very
you,
good.
Ernestine. Very good, guys.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Very good
you.
input. Good questions. And
Thank
be
you
well.
again.
Yep. Shavua Tov. Thank you, Mercy. Thanks for.
Shabbat.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.